You ever notice how some people just glow differently? Not because they're louder or richer or more successful by society's standards, but because they move through life like they know something the rest of us forgot. They don't seek permission. They don't apologize for their choices. They don't seem shaken by the chaos around them. That's not luck. That's what happens when someone starts thinking for themselves. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." And real freedom starts in your mind. The moment you stop outsourcing your thinking to others, everything shifts. Your entire reality reconstructs itself. See, most of us inherited our lives. We didn't choose them. We accepted the blueprint handed to us about what success looks like, what happiness means, what we should want, who we should become. And we spent years building a life that looks good on paper, but feels hollow in our chest. Then one day, something cracks. Maybe it's loss. Maybe it's exhaustion. Maybe it's just a quiet moment where you realize you don't recognize yourself anymore. And you ask the question that changes everything. What if I stopped doing what I'm supposed to do and started doing what actually matters to me? That question is dangerous, because once you ask it, you can't unknow the answer. This video isn't about rebellion. It's not about rejecting everything and everyone. It's about waking up to the reality that your mind is yours, your life is yours, and no one else can live it for you. What I'm about to share with you are the real shifts that happen when you reclaim your thinking. These aren't theories. These are the actual transformations you'll experience. So hit that like button, drop a comment below, share this with someone ready to wake up, subscribe to this channel, and don't skip a single part of this video. Each piece builds the foundation for the next. If you're ready to reclaim your mental freedom, drop this in the comments. My mind is mine alone. Let's get into it. Number 1. You stop living on autopilot. There's a version of you that goes through the motions, gets up, goes through the day, responds the way you've always responded, avoids what you've always avoided, chooses what you've always chosen, and never once stops to ask if any of it still fits who you're becoming. That version of you isn't living, it's repeating. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." But you can't be present when you're living on autopilot. You're not here. You're running old software, executing old programs, stuck in a loop you didn't design. Most people live their entire lives this way. They react instead of respond. They follow patterns laid down years ago, in childhood, in trauma, in moments they've long forgotten, and they wonder why nothing ever really changes. When you begin thinking for yourself, the first thing that shatters is the automation. You start catching yourself mid-loop. You pause before reacting. You notice the pattern before you repeat it. Let's say someone criticizes you. Normally you'd shut down, or lash out, or people please your way out of the discomfort. That's autopilot. But when you're thinking for yourself, you stop, you breathe, you ask, is this criticism true? Is it useful? Or is this just someone else's pain looking for a target? And suddenly, you're not controlled by the moment anymore. You're in it, but not enslaved to it. Here's what most people don't understand. Autopilot feels safe. It's predictable. You know what's coming because you've done it 1,000 times, but safety isn't the same as peace, and predictability isn't the same as purpose. Living on autopilot means you're performing a role. You're the dependable one, the strong one, the quiet one, the busy one, and you've played that role so long, you forgot it was a costume. You forgot you could take it off. When you stop living on autopilot, you strip away the performance. You stop pretending to be okay when you're not. You stop forcing yourself into spaces that drain you just because you always have. You stop saying yes when everything in you is screaming no, and people notice. They don't always like it, because your autopilot served them. It made you predictable, controllable, easy to manage. When you wake up, you become unpredictable, and that threatens the system. But here's the truth. You weren't put on this earth to be convenient for others. You were put here to be fully alive, and you can't be fully alive when you're running on someone else's programming. Waking up from autopilot is uncomfortable. It forces you to confront the ways you've been hiding, the ways you've been small, the ways you've abandoned yourself to keep the peace. But once you wake up, once you start choosing your responses instead of defaulting to old patterns, you reclaim your power. You stop being a passenger in your own life. You grab the wheel. And yeah, you might crash a few times, you might make mistakes, but at least they'll be your mistakes. At least you'll be living your life, not the echo of someone else's expectations. If you're done living on autopilot, comment this below. I choose with full awareness. Number 2, you recognize mental programming. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Most of what you believe isn't yours. You didn't sit down one day and carefully choose your values, your fears, your definitions of right and wrong. They were installed, like software, before you even knew what was happening. Your family installed some of it, your environment installed more. Every authority figure, every institution, every voice that claimed to know better than you, they all left their fingerprints on your mind. And you accepted it because you didn't know you had a choice. Seneca said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." Most of your fears aren't based on your actual experience. They're based on warnings you absorbed, stories you were told, dangers that were exaggerated to keep you in line. When you start thinking for yourself, you see the code. You recognize the programming. And once you see it, you can't pretend it's not there. Let me break this down. You have beliefs about money. Where did they come from? Did you examine them, test them, prove them? Or did you just inherit them from people who were broke, scared, or bitter? You have beliefs about what you're capable of. Are they based on evidence? Or are they based on something a teacher said when you were 8 years old? Something a parent implied when they were overwhelmed? Something a partner weaponized during a fight? You have beliefs about what makes you worthy. Love, respect, belonging. Did you choose those standards, or were they imposed by a culture that profits from your insecurity? This is the programming, and it runs deep. The scary part is that you defend it, even when it hurts you, even when it limits you, because it's familiar, because dismantling it feels like dismantling yourself. But you are not your programming. You are the awareness underneath it. You are the one who can observe it, question it, and choose whether to keep it or delete it. When you recognize mental programming, you stop taking your thoughts at face value. You stop assuming that just because you think something, it must be true. You start asking, where did this come from? Who benefits from me believing this? Does this belief serve my growth, or does it keep me stuck? And this is where real freedom starts, because you can't change what you can't see. But once you see the invisible chains, you can break them. You'll notice programming everywhere, in the guilt you feel for resting, in the shame you feel for wanting more, in the fear you feel when you consider disappointing someone. None of that is natural, it's trained, and you can untrain it. This doesn't mean rejecting everything you were taught. Some of it is wisdom, some of it protects you, but you have to sort through it. You have to become the gatekeeper of your own mind. People will resist this. When you start questioning shared beliefs, you make others uncomfortable. Because if you can reprogram yourself, it means they can too. And most people aren't ready to face that responsibility. But that's not your problem. Your problem is living a life built on someone else's fear. And you can't do that anymore, not once you've seen the truth. If you're breaking free from old programming, type this now: I choose empowering beliefs. Number 3. You become harder to manipulate. There's a reason why thinking people are dangerous to broken systems, because you can't control someone who questions everything. You can't manipulate someone who knows how manipulation works. You can't guilt-trip someone who's done the work to separate their worth from your approval. When you start thinking for yourself, you become immune to tactics that used to work on you. The emotional blackmail, the manufactured urgency, the fear-based decisions, the peer pressure disguised as concern. Epictetus said, "He who laughs at himself never runs out of things to laugh at." But more importantly, he who knows himself can't be sold a false version of himself. And that's what manipulation banks on: your disconnection from your own truth. Most manipulation isn't obvious. It doesn't announce itself. It comes wrapped in care, in tradition, in "I'm just looking out for you." It comes from people who genuinely believe they know what's best for your life better than you do. And when you were living on autopilot, when you hadn't examined your programming, that manipulation worked because you didn't trust yourself, you didn't know what you wanted, so you let others decide for you. But when you start thinking for yourself, something shifts. You develop what I call an internal compass, a sense of true north that doesn't move based on who's talking or how loud they're talking or how guilty they're trying to make you feel. You start noticing the tactics. Someone tells you everyone's doing it, and instead of feeling left out, you ask yourself if everyone's direction is where you want to go. Someone says, "You owe me," and instead of collapsing under obligation, you examine whether that debt is real or imagined. Someone tries to rush you into a decision, and instead of panicking, you slow down. Because you know that urgency is often a red flag, that pressure is a tool, that if something is truly good for you, it won't require you to abandon your discernment to obtain it. Here's what people don't tell you. Most manipulation comes from people who love you, from family who wants you to stay small because your growth threatens their comfort, from friends who need you to stay stuck because your progress highlights their stagnation, from partners who need you dependent because your strength challenges their control. They don't see it as manipulation. They see it as protection, guidance, love, and maybe part of it is. But love that requires you to betray yourself isn't love. It's control with a prettier name. When you become harder to manipulate, relationships change. Some people get uncomfortable. They don't like that you're suddenly setting boundaries, that you're saying no without explanation, that you're not rushing to fix their feelings or manage their reactions. They'll call you selfish, cold, changed. And they're right about one thing: you have changed. You've stopped abandoning yourself to keep them comfortable, and if that feels like a loss to them, that tells you everything you need to know about what they valued in the relationship. But here's the beautiful part. When you stop being manipulable, you attract different people. People who respect your boundaries, people who value your autonomy, people who don't need you weak to feel strong. You also make better decisions because you're not deciding based on fear of rejection or need for approval. You're deciding based on alignment. Does this serve my values? Does this honor my truth? Does this move me toward the life I actually want? And when the answer is no, you walk away. Not with anger, not with drama, just with clarity, because you know your peace is worth more than their persuasion. Becoming harder to manipulate doesn't mean becoming hard. It means becoming solid, grounded, unmovable in your core values while remaining flexible in your approach. It means knowing the difference between being open-minded and being a doormat. If you refuse to be manipulated anymore, declare this: I trust my inner truth. Number 4. You make decisions based on values, not approval. Here's a question that'll make you uncomfortable. How many of your current life choices would you make if no one was watching? If no one would praise you or judge you or even know about it, would you still choose the same path? For most people, the answer is terrifying, because most people aren't living their values. They're performing for an invisible audience, making choices designed to earn applause, avoid criticism, or maintain an image that stopped fitting years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." But you can't be one if you're too busy trying to look like one. You can't live by your values if you don't know what they are, if they're buried under layers of other people's expectations. When you start thinking for yourself, you stop outsourcing your decisions to the approval of others. You stop asking, "What will they think?" and start asking, "What do I actually believe is right?" This is harder than it sounds, because we're wired for belonging. Our ancestors survived by staying in the tribe. Being rejected meant death. So we learned to shapeshift, to mold ourselves to fit, to bury our truth if it threatened our acceptance. But we're not living in those conditions anymore. Being true to yourself won't get you exiled. It might get you criticized, misunderstood, lonely for a season, but it won't kill you. And living a lie might not kill your body, but it'll murder your soul slowly, quietly, until you don't recognize the person in the mirror. Making decisions based on values means you have to know what your values are. Not what you were told they should be, what they actually are. And that requires brutal honesty. Do you value security or growth, comfort or truth, harmony or authenticity? There's no right answer, but there's your answer. And it might be different from your parents' answer, your culture's answer, your partner's answer. And that's okay. That's the point. Let me give you something real. Maybe you stayed in a career that's killing you because leaving would disappoint people who invested in your education. That's approval-based deciding. A values-based decision asks, what do I actually want my life's work to be? What legacy do I want to leave? What would I do if I only had 10 years left? Maybe you're in a relationship that looks perfect from the outside, but feels empty on the inside. Approval-based thinking says stay. Don't be the one who breaks up a good thing. Values-based thinking asks, do I feel loved here? Do I feel seen? Do I feel free to grow? Can I be fully myself? Maybe you keep saying yes to obligations that drain you because saying no feels selfish. Approval-based living. Values-based living asks, is this aligned with how I want to spend my limited time and energy? Does this feed my purpose or just my guilt? When you start making values-based decisions, people will question you. They'll tell you you're making a mistake, that you're being impulsive, unrealistic, ungrateful, and sometimes their concern is genuine, but often it's just discomfort. Your deviation from the script threatens their investment in the same script. You can listen to their perspective. You can consider their input. But ultimately, you have to live with your choices. Not them. You. And you can't live with choices that violate your core being just to keep others comfortable. Values-based living also means you'll make some unpopular choices. You'll turn down opportunities that look good but feel wrong. You'll end relationships that seem fine but aren't fulfilling. You'll disappoint people who had different plans for your life, and that's part of the cost. But the alternative is living someone else's idea of a good life while your own life passes you by, and that cost is infinitely higher. Here's the freedom in this. When you make decisions based on values, you stop second-guessing yourself. You stop lying awake wondering if you made the right call. Because even if it's hard, even if it doesn't work out the way you hoped, you know it was true to who you are. And that alignment brings peace that approval never could. If you're choosing yourself over people-pleasing, write this. I choose values over approval. Number 5. You get comfortable standing alone. There will come a moment when your truth isolates you, when the path you know you need to take diverges completely from the path everyone around you is walking, when your growth requires you to outgrow relationships, spaces, and versions of yourself that others still need you to be. And in that moment, you'll have to choose, do I shrink back to belong, or do I stand alone in my truth? Seneca said, "The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately." And part of living immediately is accepting that your journey is yours alone. No one else can walk it for you. No one else can validate it for you. You have to become your own authority. Most people never develop this capacity. They need consensus. They need someone else to go first. They need proof that it's safe before they take a step. And so, they stay stuck, waiting for permission that will never come. When you start thinking for yourself, you realize that the crowd isn't always right. That popularity doesn't equal truth. That just because everyone is moving in one direction doesn't mean it's the direction you should go. And you get comfortable with that. You get comfortable being the only one who sees what you see, the only one who values what you value, the only one willing to walk a path that hasn't been walked before. This doesn't mean you reject all companionship. It doesn't mean you become arrogant or isolated by choice. It means you stop needing others to agree with you in order to trust yourself. You can have people in your life who don't understand your choices and still love them. You can receive advice and still make a different decision. You can be part of a community without conforming to all its beliefs. But you have to be willing to stand alone when necessary. And that's the part most people can't handle. Because standing alone is uncomfortable. It brings up every childhood wound about not being chosen, every adolescent fear of being different, every adult anxiety about being left behind. But here's what standing alone teaches you. You're enough. Just you. Without the validation, without the support, without the cheerleaders. You in your truth, making choices aligned with your soul. That's enough. You also learn who your real people are. Because some people only want you when you're easy, when you're agreeable, when you're not challenging them to look at their own lives. But the people who love you for real, they'll respect your path even when they don't understand it. Standing alone also sharpens your discernment. When you're used to moving with the crowd, you don't develop strong decision-making muscles. But when you're alone, when the choice is entirely yours, you learn to trust your instincts, to read situations, to know in your gut what's right for you, and over time, something beautiful happens. You stop feeling lonely in your solitude. You start feeling free, because you're not performing anymore. You're not contorting yourself to fit. You're just being, fully, unapologetically, and the right people, the aligned opportunities, the true connections, they find you there, in your authenticity, in your solitude, in your strength. If you're willing to stand alone for what's right, commit by typing, "I stand firm in my truth." Number 6. You control your emotional responses. Most people are emotional puppets. Something happens and they react. Someone says something and they explode. A memory surfaces and they spiral. They believe their emotions control them, that feelings are facts, that if they feel it, they must act on it. But when you start thinking for yourself, you realize something profound. You are not your emotions. You are the one experiencing them. And there's a galaxy of difference between those two things. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Your emotions are not outside events. They're internal weather. And just like you can't control a storm, you can't always control when emotions arise. but you can absolutely control how you respond to them. This is one of the most liberating realizations of your life, because for years you've been told to follow your heart and trust your feelings. But feelings lie. They're shaped by old wounds, unmet needs, distorted perceptions, and chemical reactions in your brain. They're valuable data, but they're not infallible truth. When you develop the ability to observe your emotions without being controlled by them, you become unstoppable. Someone insults you, and instead of crumbling or attacking, you pause. You notice the anger rising. You feel the hurt underneath it. And then you choose how to respond. Maybe you address it calmly. Maybe you walk away. Maybe you realize it says more about them than you and let it dissolve. That's power, real power. Not the power to control others, but the power to control yourself. Here's what most people don't understand. Emotional control isn't about suppression. It's not about pretending you don't feel what you feel or forcing yourself to stay positive when you're breaking inside. That's spiritual bypassing, and it's just as destructive as emotional chaos. True emotional control is about creating space between stimulus and response. It's about feeling the full weight of your emotion, acknowledging it, understanding where it's coming from, and then deciding what to do with it. You feel rage? Good. Feel it. Let it move through your body. But don't let it make your decisions. Don't send that message. Don't burn that bridge. Don't destroy something you built just because you're hurting. You feel fear. Acknowledge it. Ask it what it's trying to protect you from. Sometimes it's warning you of real danger. Sometimes it's just echoing old trauma. You have to discern which one, and then you move forward anyway, with the fear, not controlled by it. You feel sadness? Let yourself grieve. Let yourself cry. Let yourself sit in the heaviness. But don't let it convince you that nothing will ever get better. Don't let it write the story of your future based on the pain of your present. This level of emotional mastery changes everything. Your relationships improve because you're not reacting from your wounds anymore. You're responding from your wisdom. You're not punishing people for triggering you. You're taking responsibility for your healing. Your decisions improve because you're not making them in emotional extremes. You're not quitting your job in a rage, or making commitments in a high, or avoiding hard conversations because you're scared. You're waiting for clarity, for groundedness, for alignment. Your self-respect grows because you're no longer betraying yourself in emotional moments. You're not saying things you don't mean. You're not doing things that violate your values. You're not letting temporary feelings create permanent consequences. People will test this new version of you. They'll try to provoke you the way they used to. They'll push your buttons expecting the old reaction. And when you don't give it to them, when you stay calm and centered, they won't know what to do with you. Some will respect it. Some will escalate. Some will accuse you of being cold or fake or not yourself. But you'll know the truth. You're more yourself than you've ever been, because you're not a slave to every emotional wave. You're the captain of your own ship. And that's when you truly become free. If you're taking control of your emotions, affirm this: I feel deeply. Choose wisely. Number 7. You redefine success on your own terms. Society sells you a very specific picture of success. The title, the income, the house, the relationship status, the milestones you're supposed to hit by certain ages. And if you don't achieve them, you're failing, falling behind, wasting your potential. But when you start thinking for yourself, you realize something radical. You don't have to buy what they're selling. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." True success isn't about accumulation. It's about alignment. It's about building a life that feels right to you, not a life that looks right to them. Most people are chasing a version of success they don't even want. They want the corner office because it proves something. They want the luxury car because it signals something. They want the perfect family photo because it performs something. But inside, they're exhausted, empty, wondering why achievement doesn't feel like they thought it would. That's because they're climbing a ladder leaning against the wrong wall, and no amount of hustle will change the fact that they're heading somewhere they never wanted to go. When you redefine success on your own terms, you stop competing in games you never signed up for. You stop measuring yourself against people who have completely different values, resources, and definitions of fulfillment. You ask yourself the real questions. What does success actually mean to me? Not to my parents, not to my industry, not to strangers on the internet. To me. What kind of life do I want to wake up in? What kind of work do I want to do? What kind of relationships do I want to nurture? What kind of person do I want to become? And your answers might shock you. Maybe success for you isn't a six-figure income. Maybe it's freedom, time, peace. Maybe it's creating something meaningful, even if it never makes you rich. Maybe it's deep relationships over wide networks. Maybe it's adventure over stability. There's no universal definition of success, and pretending there is keeps you trapped in someone else's dream while your own life passes you by. Redefining success also means letting go of timelines. Society tells you when you should achieve things. Graduate by this age, marry by that age, have kids by this age, retire by that age. But your life doesn't follow a script, and forcing yourself into someone else's timeline creates unnecessary suffering. You're allowed to be a late bloomer. You're allowed to change careers at 40. You're allowed to start over at 50. You're allowed to build something slowly instead of chasing rapid growth. You're allowed to choose depth over speed. When you redefine success, you also redefine failure. Because failure is just not meeting someone else's standards. But if their standards aren't yours, then their definition of failure is irrelevant. You didn't get the promotion. Maybe that job was draining your soul, and this is the universe redirecting you. Your business didn't explode overnight. Maybe slow, sustainable growth is more aligned with your values. Your life doesn't look like theirs? Good. It's not supposed to. Here's the uncomfortable part. When you redefine success, people will judge you. They'll think you're not ambitious enough, not serious enough, wasting your potential. And you have to be okay with that, because their judgment is based on their definition, not yours. Your family might not understand why you left a stable career to pursue something uncertain. Your peers might not get why you're not chasing the same mark as they are. Strangers might look at your life and think you're playing small. Let them. Your success isn't a performance for their validation. It's a private alignment between your values and your reality, and only you can measure that. The freedom in this is unmatched. When you're no longer enslaved to external definitions of success, you stop hustling for applause. You stop sacrificing your well-being for status. You stop betraying your values for approval. You build a life that might not impress anyone, but it fulfills you, and that's the only success that actually matters. If you're redefining success on your terms, declare this: peace over applause. Number 8. You ask better questions. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. Most people ask terrible questions. Why does this always happen to me? Why am I not good enough? What's wrong with me? These questions don't lead anywhere useful. They just reinforce victimhood and helplessness. But when you start thinking for yourself, your questions evolve. They become tools for growth instead of weapons for self-destruction. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And most of that imaginary suffering comes from asking the wrong questions, questions that assume the worst, that reinforce limiting beliefs, that keep you stuck in patterns you claim you want to break. Better questions create better realities. Instead of, "Why does this always happen to me?" you ask, "What pattern am I repeating that creates this outcome?" Instead of, "Why am I not good enough?" you ask, "Whose standard of good enough am I measuring myself against, and do I even agree with it?" Instead of, "What's wrong with me?" you ask, "What am I learning right now?" or "What would serve me better in this situation?" See the difference? The first set of questions shuts you down. The second set opens possibilities. When you ask better questions, you gain clarity. You stop spiraling in confusion and start moving toward understanding. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start being a student of your own life. Better questions also help you navigate relationships. Instead of, "Why don't they love me the way I want?" you ask, "Am I communicating my needs clearly?" Or, "Is this relationship actually aligned with what I value?" Instead of, "Why do they always do this?" you ask, "What boundary have I failed to set or enforce?" These questions put the power back in your hands. They move you from complaint to agency. Better questions also transform your approach to challenges. Most people ask, "How do I avoid this problem?" But thinkers ask, "What is this problem teaching me?" Or, "How is this obstacle redirecting me towards something better?" Most people ask, "What if I fail?" But thinkers ask, "What if I succeed?" Or better yet, "What will I learn either way?" Most people ask, "Is this the right decision?" But thinkers ask, "What decision feels most aligned with who I'm becoming?" The questions you ask yourself shape your internal dialogue, and your internal dialogue shapes your beliefs, and your beliefs shape your actions, and your actions shape your life. So if your life isn't where you want it to be, start by examining your questions. What are you asking yourself every day? Are those questions empowering you or imprisoning you? Better questions also help you cut through noise. When faced with advice, instead of, "Should I take this advice?" ask, "Does this person have results I want? Do they understand my context? Are they projecting their fears onto my situation?" When faced with opportunity, instead of, "Is this a good opportunity?" ask, "Is this aligned with my values? Does this move me toward my vision? Am I saying yes out of excitement or fear of missing out?" When faced with doubt, instead of, "Can I do this?" ask, "Who do I need to become to do this? What's the first small step I can take?" Questions are navigational tools, and most people are using broken compasses, wondering why they keep getting lost. When you start asking better questions, you stop seeking easy answers, because you realize that the right questions are more valuable than quick answers. The right questions lead you to wisdom. Quick answers just lead you to comfort. And comfort is overrated. Growth is where life happens. If you're elevating your thinking, drop this below. I ask empowering questions. Number 9. You develop mental discipline. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Your mind is a wild animal. Left untrained, it will run wherever it wants. It'll chase every distraction. It'll replay every trauma. It'll catastrophize every uncertainty. It'll convince you of things that aren't true and talk you out of things that are. Most people live at the mercy of their untrained minds. They think whatever thought appears. They believe whatever narrative their brain constructs. They let their mind drag them into the past or hurl them into imagined futures, rarely spending any time in the only moment that actually exists, right now. But when you start thinking for yourself, you realize your mind is a tool, and like any tool, it needs to be sharpened, directed, and sometimes put down when it's not serving you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, not the quantity, the quality, and quality requires discipline. Mental discipline is the ability to direct your attention deliberately, to choose what you focus on instead of letting your focus be hijacked by whatever's loudest, brightest, or most alarming. It's the ability to interrupt destructive thought patterns and redirect them towards something useful. This isn't easy. Your brain has been running wild for years, maybe decades. It has well-worn paths, neural highways built by repetition, worry, self-doubt, resentment, comparison. These thoughts don't need your permission anymore. They just show up automatically. Mental discipline is about building new roads, new patterns, new defaults. And that takes repetition, patience, and relentless commitment. Let me be clear about what mental discipline is not. It's not toxic positivity. It's not pretending everything is fine when it's falling apart. It's not suppressing difficult emotions or forcing yourself to think happy thoughts when you're in genuine pain. Mental discipline is about sovereignty. It's about not letting your mind run wild with stories that aren't true. It's about catching yourself in the middle of a spiral and asking, is this thought helping me? Is it true? Is it useful? Or is it just my fear talking? It's about recognizing when you're ruminating, chewing on the same problem over and over without solving it, and choosing to redirect. Not because the problem isn't real, but because rumination doesn't solve it. Action does, or acceptance does, but rumination just keeps you stuck. Mental discipline also means guarding what you consume, because your mind is not separate from what you feed it. If you're constantly consuming negativity, outrage, doom, comparison, superficiality, that becomes your mental diet. And you can't expect clarity and peace when you're feeding your mind poison. You become selective, protective. You stop letting just anything into your mental space. You curate your inputs the same way you'd curate your physical diet if you actually cared about your health. This also means being ruthless with your inner dialogue. Most people talk to themselves in ways they'd never tolerate from another human being. Constant criticism, harsh judgments, impossible standards, and they wonder why they're anxious and depressed. Mental discipline is catching that voice and challenging it. Would I say this to someone I loved? Is this voice even mine, or is it an echo of someone who hurt me? Is this thought building me up or tearing me down? And then choosing a different voice, not a fake one, not a forced positive affirmation that you don't believe, but a truthful, compassionate, constructive voice. The voice of someone who wants you to grow, not someone who wants you to suffer. Here's what happens when you develop mental discipline. You stop being controlled by your moods. You have bad days, but they don't derail your entire week. You have anxious thoughts, but you don't let them dictate your decisions. You have painful memories, but you don't let them define your future. You become stable, grounded. People around you will notice. They'll wonder how you stay so calm, how you don't get swept up in drama, how you seem so centered even when everything around you is chaos. It's not because you don't feel things. It's because you've trained your mind to not amplify them, to not spiral, to observe, process, and respond instead of react. Mental discipline also creates space for creativity, insight, and wisdom. Because when your mind isn't cluttered with chaos, there's room for something deeper to emerge. Solutions you couldn't see before, perspectives that shift everything, moments of clarity that feel like grace. But you only get there through practice, through daily commitment to training your mind the way you'd train your body, through meditation, journaling, conscious breathing, deliberate focus, intentional rest, whatever tools work for you. The undisciplined mind is a prison. The disciplined mind is a sanctuary, and you get to choose which one you live in. If you're training your mind for strength, commit with this: I master my mind. Number 10. You reclaim ownership of your life. This is where everything comes together. All the other shifts lead to this one fundamental truth. Your life is yours, not your parents', not your partner's, not your employer's, not society's, yours. And when you fully accept that, when you stop waiting for permission, stop blaming circumstances, stop outsourcing responsibility, you step into a level of power most people never experience. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And most people are not masters of themselves. They're renters in their own lives, living according to terms and conditions they never agreed to, making choices based on leases signed by people who came before them. But when you start thinking for yourself, you reclaim the deed. You take ownership. Full, complete, terrifying ownership. This means accepting that everything in your life, where you are, who you're with, what you do, how you feel about it, is the result of your choices. Not entirely. Life throws things at you that you didn't choose. Loss, illness, betrayal, injustice. You don't control those, but you control your response. Always. And your response determines your trajectory. Reclaiming ownership means you stop saying, "I have to." You stop saying, "I can't because." You stop saying, "Someday when." You start saying, "I choose to," or "I choose not to." Even when the choice is hard, even when all options are difficult. Because the moment you accept that you're choosing, even if you're choosing the lesser of two evils, you reclaim your power. You're no longer a victim, you're a participant. Let me be honest with you. This level of ownership is uncomfortable. It's easier to blame, to point fingers, to say your life is the way it is because of what they did, what happened, what you didn't get, what wasn't fair. And some of that might be true. Life isn't fair. You might have gotten a raw deal. You might have been hurt in ways that weren't your fault. But here's the hard truth. It's still your life to live. And you can either spend it demanding justice for the past or building something meaningful in the present. You can't do both with full energy. Reclaiming ownership also means accepting that no one is coming to save you. Not your parents, not your partner, not your therapist, not some future version of yourself who magically has it all figured out. You are the one, right now, with all your flaws and fears and limitations. You're the one who has to do the work, make the changes, have the hard conversations, set the boundaries, take the risks. And that's terrifying, because what if you fail? What if you're not capable? What if you try and it doesn't work out? Those fears are real, but they're not a reason to abdicate. Because here's the alternative. You hand your life over to others. You let them decide. You play it safe. You stay small. And one day you wake up at 70 and realize you never actually lived. You just survived. You just complied. You just existed in the margins of someone else's story. That's the real risk. Not trying and failing. Not trying at all. When you reclaim ownership of your life, you also reclaim your mistakes. You stop defending them. Stop justifying them. You own them. I made that choice. It didn't work out. I learned from it. I'm making a different choice now. That kind of accountability is rare. Most people will do mental gymnastics to avoid admitting they were wrong. But you know that admitting you were wrong is how you become right. It's how you grow. You also stop waiting for ideal conditions, for the perfect time, for all your ducks to be in a row. You realize that life is messy, and if you wait for perfect, you'll wait forever. So you start, imperfectly, scared, uncertain, but you start. Because ownership isn't about having all the answers. It's about being willing to figure it out as you go. And here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you take full ownership of your life, the moment you stop needing anyone to rescue you, or validate you, or complete you, that's when you become truly free. Free to love without desperation. Free to work without needing it to define you. Free to fail without it destroying you. free to succeed without it inflating you. You become whole, not because everything is perfect, but because you're finally, fully, unapologetically in the driver's seat of your own existence. And nothing, no achievement, no relationship, no external validation will ever feel as good as that. If you're claiming full ownership of your life, type this powerful statement: I own my life completely. So here we are. 10 shifts that happen when you begin thinking for yourself. Not theories, not philosophies, real transformations that will reshape every corner of your existence. You'll stop living on autopilot. You'll see the programming. You'll become harder to manipulate. You'll make choices based on your values, not their approval. You'll stand alone when necessary. You'll control your emotional responses. You'll redefine success. You'll ask better questions. You'll develop mental discipline, and you'll reclaim full ownership of your life. But here's what I need you to understand. Knowing this changes nothing. Only doing it does. Only living it does. Only having the courage to apply these truths to your actual life. That's what creates transformation. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." So, stop theorizing about the life you want to live. Stop preparing to start. Stop waiting for permission. Think for yourself. Choose for yourself. Live for yourself. The world needs people who are awake, who are sovereign, who refuse to be controlled, manipulated, or diminished. Be one of those people. If this resonated with you, hit that like button, drop a comment below with your biggest takeaway, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to this channel for more content that challenges you to become who you're truly meant to be. Your life is waiting. Go claim it. If this message awakened something in you, seal it by commenting, "I think for myself."